Well, hello, good evening, and welcome. Well, today we're obviously going to look at the last State of the Nation address given by the President today in Parliament. Now, one of the things that I want to figure out is, has it come too late? Why am I going to say that? The posture, the demeanor. You listen to the media and everybody was saying it was like statesmanship, it was calling for unity, gave a lot of respect to the opposition, called for the nation to indeed support the opposition for good nation building, because if it works well, it works well for all of us. Is this something that the president should have been calling for all along? Is it come too late? Another thing people are saying is that he didn't touch on all the sectors. And one major sector that he did not touch on was agriculture. One of my guests today can definitely speak to agriculture. But I have some fine guests in the house today to look and analyze the last State of the Nation's address. My name is Nana Sakwa IV, Kwamwedu Masahini, and also your host. When I come back, we are looking at the State of the Nation address, the last one. Well, State of the Nation address, as I said in the intro. But before we start, just in case you missed it, here are some excerpts of what happened today.
At the start of our term in office and for many years prior, there have been national dissatisfaction at the declining standards of education at the basic and secondary levels. Lack of access to both basic and secondary education has meant that many children were being left behind. A shortage of professionally trained teachers, teacher absenteeism, shortage of core textbooks, resulting in a situation in which 4 children shared 1 textbook. Dilapidated schools, lack of science laboratories and workshops, among others, manifested in declining results at the Basic Education Certificate Examination BECE and West African Secondary School Certificate Examination WASSCE. Our vision under my administration has been to turn this situation around and not only improve access to education, but also improve the quality of education. Mr. Speaker, we're witnessing a significant improvement in our educational outcomes. More children than ever before in our history are having access to education at the basic and secondary levels. With the distribution of free textbooks, children have access to all the core textbooks and no longer have to share. In excess of 2,000 dilapidated schools, popularly referred to as schools under trees, have been replaced. Teachers are more available and are more evenly distributed than has been the case in the past. Teacher absenteeism is down from 27% to below 9%. Mr. Speaker, this has led to more engagement hours between teachers and students. The construction and population of 47 newly built community-day senior high schools means that more students are able to continue their education beyond the basic level instead of dropping out of school. These investments we have made are yielding results and reflecting in the performance of our children. Mr. Speaker, the early years of this government was characterized by a crippling power crisis. The shortage of power led to a very unpopular load management program. This shortage of power hobbled the growth of our economy and affected both business and residential customers. Many businesses had to resort to the use of generators to survive. Mr. Speaker, I stood on the floor of this very august House and took full responsibility for the crisis and promised that I'll do my utmost to fix the problem. It has taken a lot of hard work and effort. Mr. Speaker, it has taken a lot of hard work and effort. Fast-tracking the deployment of emergency plans and speeding up the completion of ongoing plans ensured that we added more than 800 megawatts of power over an 18-month period. This increased generation, in addition to the energy sector levy and ongoing works to restructure the legacy debt of the power utilities, has helped to stabilize the power situation in our country. With the expectation of more domestic gas from the TEN and Sankofa fields, Ghana is entering into an era of energy self-sufficiency. Indeed, the warning signals have started sounding about the danger of overcapacity and excess redundancy in our power generation sector. We have agreed to work with the World Bank to rationalize the addition of new plants and ensure that we achieve optimum utilization of existing plant capacity. Mr. Speaker, access to power under my administration has continued to increase. Ghana has one of the highest access to electricity, estimated to be above 80% currently. Additional pending electrification programs like the China Water Company program and the Hunan Energy projects will bring even more communities onto the national grid. Political opposition and differences of opinion are vital to the health and growth of any democracy. Political parties are formed when people of similar ideology come together to move their agenda forward in a way that best serves their country's interest. But the well-being of the nation and the will of the people must always come first. Partisanship for its own sake in the end is no better than dictatorship. If we look around the world, we can so clearly see the deep divide that blind partisanship is creating in nations with democracies that are even far older than ours. We can see, too, the divide that it is threatening to create in ours if we are not careful. Already it's taking a toll on our morale and our sense of optimism. It has given way to a cynicism that is as dangerous to the incoming political party as it is to the outgoing. We cannot afford as a nation to wish or hope for the failure of any president and his or her government. Ensuring accountability is not the same as leveling insults or encouraging apathy. We have history as proof that we have been better and that we have done better, and that we must do better once again. It is my assertion that the information I've provided is a snapshot of the current state of our nation. As I've said before, I'll allow history to be the judge of how I have served my nation. How well I have done my part in running my lap of that relay. What that verdict will ultimately be, I cannot say. I can only say that I have done my best, giving my all, and done so with the best of intentions for my God and my country. Our country, Ghana. This is why I stand here today, Mr. Speaker, holding the baton of leadership, prepared to pass it on with pride, goodwill, and determination to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and to ask all Ghanaians to cheer him on as he runs his portion of this important relay for Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, I thank members of this House, and I thank the citizens of Ghana for the opportunity you have given me. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless our beloved homeland, Ghana. I thank you.
So that's what happened today, if indeed you missed it. And with me in the studio, sat directly next to me, is Dr. Ziblim Idi, MP-elect for Gushegu. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then I also have Dr. Ahmed Al-Hassan Yakubu, MP for Myong. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to start one word, just one word to describe that.
Humble.
And then I'll take one from Dr. Al-Hassan. One word.
I think it was a unifying statement.
So you say unifying.
Yeah.
Unifying. So it's all very, very positive. And then I will come to you, Dr. Ziblim, to start with. You think this, the posture, the humbling, the unifying came a little bit too late, probably 2 weeks too late?
Well, thank you, and let me say good evening to your viewers, especially the good people of Gushegu. Good evening, Anumula. Actually, I think the president has always been noted to be a gentleman, a good man, and somebody who has carried himself throughout his political career as a very affable, humbled, and gentleman. And so if you follow his political career, I'm not sure whether those who say today that it has come a little too late, that has always been his character, except that like any other human being, I think for a while he got carried away by circumstances and situations around him. And so maybe certain aspect of his character showed, and people, thought he was not gentle in the way he was going about either the campaign, during the campaign, or when things were not going on well in the past 4 years. But for some of us who have followed him and know him, and my senior colleague here knows him far better than I do, I think today was just once again a demonstration of the gentle John Mahama that we have known. Yes, for his political career, yes, maybe if what we saw today was demonstrated in February when he had opportunity to deliver the opening State of the Nation address to Parliament. It took 2 hours, and there were a lot of things going on that were not, to some extent, presidential, heckling, and that today you saw the John Mahama that we all have known to be gentle, presidential, humbled. But of course, it's difficult to be a lame duck president. If you lose elections and you are still in office, yes, you are Mr. President, but you know that the trappings of power, getting out of your hands. So he was humbled by the defeat, and it was clearly demonstrated today. But most importantly, I think, especially in terms of the brevity of the speech, it wasn't a long speech. And one has to situate it in the context of, one, he's not going to be the next president for the next 4 years, so he doesn't have to proffer anything that I will do this, I will do that. Two, well, one expected him to maybe suggest certain policy measures for the incoming government, which he didn't do, and I think that's where I will fault him. But for 30 minutes, I think he captured major sectors. Yes, he left out, 1 or 2 areas, but he captured, especially education. And I think his section on education was very comprehensive, and that has always been his area in terms of education. He touched on security. He touched on, the major sectors that one would expect him to touch on. The economy, yes, briefly, but not, as one will expect in terms of getting the details and where we are and what the incoming government should expect to inherit from him. So all in all, I will say that, yes, for those of us who have known him, it's not something surprising. He's capable of delivering what he did today. Yes.
Dr. Yakubu,
yes.
You think this president we saw today came a little bit too late?
No, I think that I share a lot of the sentiments and traits that Dr. Ziblim is describing the president by. I've known the president since childhood because we were in the same secondary school. We grew up together, running around the same compound in Ghana Secondary School for 7 years before going into the world of work to really meet again in politics. He has always been a gentleman. He has always been somebody who don't want to use his speech to hurt even a fly. And so even when he's angry, if I can put it that way, it's extremely difficult to see through simply by his choice of words. He's somebody who has always tried.
Okay, well, you know why I'm asking you this question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So he's somebody who has been a gentleman all along, and he's tried to use that gentle posture and humility to influence every action of his in everything that he does
So then
in politics.
I'm sure viewers are thinking,
Yeah.
why will such a person surround himself with people who are diametrically opposed to his character?
Yeah, I like to say something about that. That the issue is about his person. It's about his delivery. That the discussion is really about. And of course, if you find yourself in a political setting, what informs your choice of personnel to help you in managing the situation is entirely something that is not really known to the public. It is only in the actions of the persons who are so chosen that people will begin to make assessments. Unfortunately, in the business that we find ourselves, 100 good mostly wouldn't make news. It's just one or two bad things that will make news, and stretched in a particularly partisan environment beyond certain limits. People can even go as far as to say that, well, this fellow, by our view, is not delivering, and therefore kick him or her out of your environment. But perhaps in-house, the fellow is delivering her schedule to expectation. So it's quite a very dicey issue to deal with, because a political environment is a choice not of an individual, but of course of a consensus that arrives at people who should represent others in a particular setting. And then you can find, as I said, one or two people doing what is not expected of them, and in the public eye that will be blown out of proportion to a large extent. And you would have known that in many instances the president has tried, in where it is obvious that certain mistakes have embarrassed the government, he has tried to intervene to try to say that, well, let's focus on what it is that we think is important. It's a mistake. Let's put it behind and move on. It is not always the case that a mistake can be pushed behind and moved on, because people will always draw on that to assess the personality of your governance. But as a person, I think that he has steered the boat quite well, and this is what I think should be the case. It must also be seen in a certain context. I've witnessed 3 concluding State of Nation addresses, one by President Kufuor in 2008, another one by the same President John Dramani Mahama in 2012, and then today's own 2017. What I find, the qualitative difference between the two is that the earlier 2 that I witnessed happened before elections. Okay? And so the leaders who were delivering those statements needed to inject a certain positives to help in the electioneering of the campaign that was going on. And therefore, you'll find a situation quite different from the particular one that we witnessed today, which was being given after an election, and in particular that he is the same president, sitting president, who lost the election, and therefore needed, and note that it was a State of the Nation address. He needed to leave behind statements that will unify the country, things that will cool down sentiments, things that will let the incoming president and his team feel at ease, so that he will open up and let them know that I'm asking the whole country, including myself and my party, who are living government, to cooperate with the new system, so that we can be the beneficiaries as a country. I think this is basically what the president was seeking to do.
Sensibly, everybody was expecting that, seeing that Greek is the backbone of the country, there should have been something mentioned on agriculture, but
yes, I don't know what happened to the speech writers, but that was a very serious omission in the speech. This country is a lower middle income economy, and our economy is largely anchored by agriculture. Agriculture, I think from historical has always been 65–70% of our GDP, and so it's a major sector, and the contribution of that sector to the stability and growth of this economy is huge. For such a big sector to be left out in such a major speech. The State of the Nation's address, especially to Parliament, is for the President to take accounts of. So the opening one is for him to give promises to Parliament as to what he will carry out during the course of the 12 months. And the last one is for him to come and account to Parliament as to whether he was able to deliver on the things that he said in February. So one expected him, especially I've not gone back to look at the exact statements that were made on agriculture. Maybe my senior colleague coming from the ministry will remember. But I think the President touched on agriculture in February. And so he was telling Parliament, the 6th Parliament, that during the course of the year, this is what we intend to do. So today, one expected him to account to Parliament whether he actually was successful in delivering on those policy promises that he gave in February. It didn't happen, and I will say it was a major omission that I think whoever wrote the speech will regret, and maybe the discussions going on will prompt the President to alert him to well, there will not be an opportunity because, of course, he's going out. But it was something that I think was a clear omission. Let me just touch on what my senior colleague said about, it's always difficult to read the true character of politicians, especially when they are in the heat of the game. So many variables goes into the calculation as to who should be with you, who you should surround with, and all of that. But for the President, to be fair to him, this same crop of people helped him win the 2012 elections. Yes, he changed the campaign team, but the same material were around him. Some were in the background, and some were actually holding certain positions in the party.
I think they went through and changed the party executives.
Well, no, not really. Well, maybe the party chairman gave way.
But Jan left.
Organizer, but Kofi Adom was deputy, and he moved.
He was suspended then, and then he came back. So there was just the top crop were fairly.
Well, okay. So maybe if you expand it beyond the executives, you see in terms of government, those who were serving meals through the 4 years of John. Nothing much change in terms of personality. And these were the people who were out there demonstrating characters of each, that people were not so happy with in terms of the arrogance and all of that. So, but he probably felt that if they serve meals and we won the 2012 elections, give and take, depending on where you stand.
Let me jump in here. Because there's a lot of hue and cry with regards to pay rise policy and also new appointment. Should there have been a little paragraph explaining, look, because of ABCD, that's why I'm doing this? Or
no, I think it was smart for him not to even go there. You don't try to explain or justify things.
With regards to how much tension there is.
It's within his prerogative and power and authority as the sitting president to take those actions without explanation. So if any attempt to venture into justifying
it was within his prerogative to release Muntie 3, but I came back to bite him. So, I mean, there's so many things within our prerogative, but
political
things there's so many things I can say here, but probably nobody will watch the show tomorrow. Meanwhile, I haven't done anything wrong.
But you see, once you have taken the action, you don't go back to justify, explain, and unless you are forced. And I think there was no compelling reason for him to
let me bring the Agric chief himself. The Agric chief himself. I mean, would you have wanted to hear some of the policies or some of the things you were doing in agriculture concerning how big it is in the final speech?
Well, let me put it this way. We have our own style of governance as a country. In certain jurisdictions, there will normally be some synopsis of what subjects are going to be addressed by a national leader in his main speech, whether it is a budget statement or a statement made in crisis, or it is a normal state of the nation as we witness. But in our situation, most of it is kept wrapped up unless maybe those who are running sectors as to expose information for speech writers to put together, to put across. But I like to state, yes, many or some sectors that people regard as significant were not there. Maybe the president and his team were also thinking of something entirely different. And as I said, this was the one that he delivered in 2012 was similarly short, very, very short. And it didn't cover all the sectors as it is today. And in any case, I've witnessed many, many, many State of Nation addresses in my life as a member of Parliament. And it has never been the case that every single State of Nation address has contained every single thing that the population is thinking about. And particularly that this one was a terminal one that was meant to get, in the circumstances of a transition going on, meant that the people needed to, the president needed to be fairly short and focused, and then address the everyday issues so that we could go. The longer one, which was in February last year, was fairly long to tell about where every sector was operated to and what the intentions were, etc. But this was meant to just say, well, I came to meet the station, the country 4 years ago in this state. Today, it is this way. And then trying to look at the everyday issues that bother people, whether it's education or health or road infrastructure or water, etc. And then, and living it there. So I do agree with you.
At 0.4% growth, there couldn't have been much for him to say. Could
no, I unfortunately, I feel a little bit hurt when this 0.4 is quoted in 2017, when this was statistics recorded in 2015. I really don't see why. As recently as, I think a week ago, a particular group of, I don't know, farmers or association or so were congratulating President Nana Akufo-Addo, which is legitimate and within their rights. But let's quote statistics. The 0.4 was the first 2 quarters of 2015. And we have still run up to the last 2 quarters of 2015 and the 4 quarters of 2016. So we still cannot be quoting 0.4 as if that was the situation today. It is most unfortunate. So the situation today is that in the 4 quarters of 2016, the growth of the sector in 2015, the agri sector grew by 2.4% at the close of the year.
2016. 2015.
Yes, 2.4%. In the first quarter of 2016, it was close to 3%. In the second quarter, it was more than 3%. I don't know the figures of recent, but I think the last statistics published was more than 3% as well. So we have since moved on from the 0.0. I wasn't told that we were going to discuss the sector. No, I wasn't told. I don't want any. Just a minute. I wasn't told we were going to discuss the sector. Otherwise, I could have been more detailed. But I could have been more organized to present figures. I like figures generally. They tell a lot. But that was not the case. So I think because
so at the moment the growth rate is safely 3%.
Absolutely, or more. Yeah,
safely 3%.
More than 4%.
Yes, now if I may come, I just wanted to say that I think we can run away from the fact that the somber nature of today's event in terms of the president coming into the chamber of the House, very humbled. You could tell that the events of December 7th, of course, was still in his mind, and he's still getting through whatever happens on that day. So he missed an opportunity. I understand where my senior colleague is coming from in terms of context, but it's also true that President Kufuor in 2009, when he was exiting, 2008, 2009, found himself in the same situation. But of course, he was not the one who lost the election, it was the MPP. In terms of chronology, I'm not sure whether his speech was delivered before the elections.
It was delivered before the elections.
Okay,
yes.
but he still
November.
He still took opportunity of the speech to prefer certain policy, suggestions to not just the next government, but to Ghanaians going forward. I think that was the speech that he made, this famous suggestion that we should look at the presidential term limits, maybe increase the number from 4 years to, is it 5 or 6
5
years?
years, yeah.
5 years. So what I think, if the president was in the mood where he really wanted to prefer policies, regardless of the fact that his government is leaving power, he is still a statesman, and his party is still going to be very active and a key stakeholders in the political process. He could have, at least given some section to going forward. These are the areas based on my experience as your president for the last 4 years. I think that the incoming president can benefit from my experience by doing A, B, Z. He didn't do that, and I think that it was basically because he wasn't in the mood. He came in and he really wanted to get out of the chamber and delivered a 30-minute speech, vis-a-vis the 2-hour speech that we saw in February. The fact of the matter is that this particular event, ceremony, is a constitutional requirement. It's incumbent on him to come and account. So you can't come and say, I just want to say 1 or 2 things and get out. You promised or you said things in February, and those were things that the people of Ghana expected you to come and account for your stewardship for the last 12 months. So I think he was not just in the mood, and it was very clear.
Let me just make one quick comment on this one. You see, I've said already that it has never happened that every single State of the Nation address has contained everything to the expectation of the general population. It has never been the case, because you have to address every single issue as it is. So normally, the topical issues of the time are mostly what it is that people try to address. And this particular one was, just a minute, this was a terminal, this was terminal State of the Nation address that was meant to capture the job done in 4 years. And he's always done a State of the Nation address every single year in terms of accounting and drawing on the progression of activities from 1 year to the next, or even from 1 quarter to the next. And I think he tried to paint a picture of where the country was in 2013 when he came into office, and what it is today, using certain sectors to demonstrate the progress that we've made or not. And so I do agree that yes, it should have been the case, but in the case of President Kufuor, he delivered his terminal State of the Nation address in November 2008, where we had several weeks before the national elections. And therefore the context,
basically a campaign message.
The context was certainly very different, and he needed to, it was his priority to question certain constitutional provisions in our national constitution that tended to tie down the arms of the executive in action. I remember that apart from the presidential term, he also questioned the powers of the judiciary in overturning executive actions when really the executive have the mandate of the people to take certain decisions that they think will inure to the progress of the country.
Let me take a quick pause here, and then when I come back, there are two big questions that I want to put to my guests. So don't even move at all. We're coming straight back. Thank you very much for staying. And the State of the Nation address, constitutional mandate. Every president, as you're about to leave, you need to account finally to the people. Tell them what state you inherited and how it is that you are leaving it to go. And indeed, the president abide by the laws, came to Parliament politely, unifying, humbling, presented the state as it is now to the nation. Some people thought, look, you may have missed, some very, very vital parts of the state with which you met and you're leaving, but hey, it's all well and done, and we still live in peace. But I want to start with Dr. Ziplim and find out, is there somewhere in the speech you find that probably the president will listen, these guys misunderstood me, and that, look, I'm a good guy, this was my plan, but you did not come along with me. You know, it's like he thinks that he's been misunderstood.
Well, you don't necessarily, you don't see that, but what you see is the president still touting his achievements.
Well, he keeps calling that history will judge, history will judge. You know, he's not saying, not rudely, but he's just trying to say, listen, you know, I'm a good guy, good heart, I had a plan, but you just didn't, you know, come along with me.
Well, you know, the president is a student of history. When he was teaching us biology, he was teaching history. So as a student of history, he understands that, you know, great men are judged after they leave the stage. When you are on stage, you know, people are excited about what is going on, and people don't actually take time to judge you based on the whole, you know, total of your work. Now, I think it's fair to hear the president say that history will judge him, because then during the course of the 4 years, a lot of things have happened that there has been, you know, criticism here and there. But there has also been some good things, and maybe after a while, people will look back and reflect on some of the good things that he did. And they may look at the balance sheet and say that on the totality, it was good. You can always take out the arrogance, the corruption, and all of that of his subordinates. And some people may say even himself in terms of the corruption, but there is no evidence to that. But at least the achievements are there, and that those will stand in his name. And so, yes, I think history will look back. And as to whether they will judge him fairly or not, it will be difficult for anybody to say. Now, coming back to your question, whether that suggests that he was trying to tell Ghanaians, oh, you didn't get me right. No. I think he was just saying, I've done my part. I'm leaving the stage. I will leave it in your hands for you to judge in the full complement of time, so that you can look at the full complement of my work. So the fullness of time will allow for Ghanaians to actually have the opportunity to look back and take the bad, the good, and see whether he deserves to be judged well by history or not. For me, I sympathize with him. As a student of history, I don't think he wanted to go out making history. The first sitting president to lose elections, and of course also the first president to lose elections with the margin that he suffered. So those, I think, are things that he would actually look back and be very sad.
Dr. Yakubu,
yes.
Do you fear that this time it won't be the dead goat syndrome, but it will be the Achampon syndrome? Here is a general who came to power, as they call maybe a palace coup. Nobody died. Came through a coup though. Built the Wager Dam, the Pond Dam, extended the Akosombo Dam, built Dansuman Estate, Teshinungwa Estate, Sakumono Estate, Madina Estate, practically rebuilt Koforidua, Bolga, roads, every major significant irrigation that we know today was either started by him or built by him. So there was a man who also went heavy on infrastructure. Police hospital, the CID office, most major names we know in business were all thriving under Achampon. But today, history still has never come round to recognize Achampon. Is there a danger that President Mahama will have the Achampon syndrome, where we will drive over his flyover and forgot that, you know, once upon a time he even brought this interchange?
Well, that would be, again, for people to judge, but I don't think that will be the case. The difference between the two scenarios is that in the case of Achampon, while doing all this, nobody could talk back. Okay, you couldn't. He didn't go to a parliament to justify his loan agreements, to commit them and say, this is what I want to do, and went ahead to do them. In the case of President John Dramani Mahama, he was doing all this in the context of a mandate given to him by popular votes as president of the country. And then I don't want to say yes or no to your question, because it's so difficult to answer. But what I would like to say is that in the particular case of visionary leaders often think beyond their immediate time. Visionary leaders often think beyond their immediate time, because they are looking at lifting a country to relevance in the next 20 years, next 30 years, the next 50 years. Then there are also people who are putting their country in a global context because they move around and they see what it is that others have done to get to where they are, that we also aspire to get to. So all this inform some of the decisions that they take. And it is not in all cases that the generality of the citizenry will follow through exactly what it is that is going on. And so whilst President Mahama was doing all these commitments to get road infrastructure going, health infrastructure, education, agriculture, etc., etc., perhaps others also felt that the priority ought to be elsewhere. And therefore, it is not in all cases that everybody would have understood and embraced what it is that he was doing. And so he's going to leave with a mixed feeling to the country, in particular that there has been an election that his party did not succeed to sustain his leadership, which tells a story that, well, I've done what I thought I should have done. I've put in my all. I'm not embarrassed by what I did, but I've lost an election and a new team is coming in. In many instances, people who want to tout their achievements will always have to do that in a comparative context. Oh, the one who came before me did this, and I did this one. In that case, you will try to put attention onto yourself. He's saying that, judge me based on what I've done. Perhaps you will not do so today, but perhaps as I leave, you will take the sober moment to reflect on what it is that I have done, because there will now be an opportunity to compare me to also the people who are coming after me, to see to what extent that has been done. You could see that even in today's State of the Nation address, he drew comparisons or contexts from President Gerald Rawlings through President Kufuor to President Mills to himself. Just trying to say that, well, it's a relay race. I've done my lap because by taking the baton from others, and I'm handing the baton to President Nana Akufo-Addo. And at the end of the day, the country must be the winner, because that's what
I'll bring you. But one thing that really struck me was when he talked about insults and apathy. That's why I keep asking that, has this speech come a bit too late? He was admonishing that, our politics is bringing too much insults and apathy. And that's one thing that was so much in the NDC. We have Anita who calling Dr. Mahama, it's not, I'm not supposed to say, is it? And you interview him and he repeats it that, yes, I still stand by it. So I was shocked. I don't know where to place it in his statement, as to say, well, we're sorry for what we did. We now realize it's wrong. I don't know. At which context?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that President Mahama, as president, as leader, has always emphasized that our politics should be devoid of any insults. It should be about issues. He has always done that. But of course, we are operating as a group, and we are aggregating our individual reactions to various actions from other people. I don't know what made Kuku Anyidoho to make the statements that he made. That probably would have said that he went too far based on the demeanor of the country. That we're not interested in things that will inflame passion. But it's also a fact that there were also other issues coming from other political groupings and that perhaps generated such actions. All that the president is saying at the end of the day is that that path will not help us. And note that it's not in all cases that gentlemanly behavior, decorous speaking will necessarily earn you political office. Me, I've been a member of parliament 3 terms in my constituency. I have never, ever mentioned an opponent's name on the platform. I've never, ever attacked an opponent personally. But that doesn't mean that others didn't attack me personally so that they could eventually take me out of office and make themselves popular so that they can occupy my position. In fact, at some stage, I even told people who were supporting me if they wanted to. I said, no, if the person believes that this is only by attacking my person that he can lift himself high, so be it. But I will not want to react in that manner, because that speech eventually gets into physical violence, and that's not what the result of politicking should be. So I think the president was just trying to say that, well, in all cases, let's be even-handed. If we have made statements that were bad in the past, and this is the result it has brought us, let us try to change on all sides so that we can move on together as a country. So it was a brilliant admonition to all of us.
What your position on this?
Well, I think, let me just comment on the Achampon analogy, because, well, that's fair to the president in terms of the comparison. But I think for me, the president's difficulty in terms of history judging him is the fact that he himself set a certain criteria. He was the one who said that just building schools and roads and all of that exercise and comparing them in mediocrity. So it means that that should not be something that people should judge him on. Unfortunately, in 4 years, he has not come out with any program, social intervention, any program. And in those that he inherited, he's actually leaving them in a very bad shape. So if people are going to judge him based on his own criteria of not just looking at the Circle Dubai's, the hospitals and all of that, then there's nothing positive to take home with. So I pray that people will look at his 4 years, and that's another thing, that Kufuor had 8 years, Rawlings had 19 years, and Mills, you know, you can't even put him in the context. So to put John in that context, the 3, you know, so when you are judging Achampon, you are looking at Nkrumah. Now, if you are judging John and you are looking at Kufuor, who had 8 years, and Rawlings, who had 19 years, he can match. And so I just pray that people will look at him as an individual, as the gentleman who unfortunately surrounded himself with not so gentle people, and people would, you know, who will badmouth their opponents, and that landed him where he is. I thought that if he had another 4 years, you know, maybe he probably would have changed certain things. Unfortunately,
I say this because, you see, now the Rawlings factor is coming back up.
Yeah.
And they won't come back. And just as, you know, Mahama-led NDC went through an election and completely not give any recognition to Rawlings, I'm sure when Rawlings eventually takes his party, they will take their party and not make any reference to, you know, so who, it's not the MPP is not going to come and start praising you. If the NDC doesn't praise you, you become a champion who overthrew Buzia, and therefore MPP won't give him credit. And then the NDC, quote-unquote, PNDC shot him, so they won't give him credit. And so he's become their champions. That's why I'm saying that, you know, he's going to build all these things and probably not get anybody to sing his praises for him.
But for the president, I think he's still young, and I think he will still continue to be an active member of the NDC. And yes, there are always factionalism in any party, and so there will be factionalism in the NDC. We will all have to wait and see. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be serious struggle for power within the NDC. And if his wing of the party comes out triumphant, then maybe his legacy can be trampled. But of course, as you rightly said, if the Rawlings faction and other factions prevailed, in the internal struggle for power and position in the party, then of course his legacy will suffer. Of course, you don't expect the NPP to. The NPP has a lot to do on our own, not to be worried about defending or promoting somebody's legacy. And we will do so much so that people will even forget about
the other one was the insult bit and the apathy bit in the president's speech, which keeps saying that, look, is it a speech that came a bit too late?
I think your question is right on and is spot on. As a matter of fact, that shows a sense of somebody regretting that I wish I had an opportunity one more time to maybe correct certain things. I don't think the president is leaving office a happy man in terms of the insults, the arrogance, the labeling of corruption, incompetence, and all of that. And I think Dr. Baumia said it somewhere that when he said incompetent, he wasn't referring to the president as a person. He was referring to the government and the people that he surrounded himself with, and the things that, when look at minister, sector minister by sector minister. Well, I don't want to go personal, but he PhD in agriculture, and he was in a sector minister where he was a deputy. So you ask yourself, what calculation went into the appointment of Fifi Koita as agric minister and somebody with PhD in agriculture as deputy? The appointment of Lemuna, who he taught, Lemuna was my classmate, and he taught us biology. So what went into that? So all of these are things that I think the president will look back and say, well, maybe. And of course, in political science, we say you judge a leader by the people he surrounds himself with. So even much as you can excuse him for not being the one who was bad-mouthing people, arrogance and all of that, you also will have to blame him for giving them that space, that time to be around him and be doing all those things that
30 seconds, Dr. Yakubu.
Yes.
The decisions he took.
Well,
be brutal. Be brutal. Be brutal. Be
no, I think this was a very courageous president who took the decisions that many leaders would have shied away from by virtue of what they think could have been political repercussions on their fortunes. But I think the president took, but if you look at the economic front, he took many of the very difficult decisions. In terms of our operations in the ECOWAS context, there were many people who felt that the president was even exposing the country too much when the Ebola crisis came on. He still decided to shoulder on. There was Gitmo prisoners who came in.
Are they still here?
He felt that there was a need for the country to be compassionate and accommodate them. So this is a president who believed that yes, you may take a decision and be unpopular, but
you have to take it.
You have to take this.
Also, and that's what time we'll have. I think the next time we need to find out from Dr. Ziblim if are you guys also going to keep the Gitmo 2 or you're sending them away?
Well, first of all, let's find out whether they are still
here. They're still here.
And how they got here.
Well, it was a humbling speech. It was a unifying speech. We can't take that away from him. We all wish that maybe the president may have surrounded himself with people who were just like him, and so that his decisions may not have been questioned. But still, Ghana is winning, and we're very proud. And I'm telling you, and I've said this, that very soon we're going to be exporting democratic missionaries, and they'll be going to the likes of America to teach them how it is that democracy is practiced, because we are on the winning path, and we hope to stay there. But the number I always give you before I go is 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. Tantis Fashions, they make my shirts. They make for both male and female. Give them a call. But gentlemen, thank you very much. And thank you at home. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again.